So if you're in the middle between who you've always been and who you are becoming, then making sure it's recording, then this video might be for you. I know a couple like weeks ago, probably months ago at this point, but me and my softness sister, we were having a session together. We usually have sessions like Thursdays, and then we have softness Saturdays. On Saturday, we just learn about femininity and softness, and we just try to get a new lesson and just come together and vent as well about what's going on with us, you know, and try to give each other advice and encouragement, just everything. It's just, oh my gosh, I love it so much. I love it so much. But we were having a conversation, we're talking about it. And it got brought up in the conversation. I was telling her, I said, you know, like, if I could be honest. And she was like, what? And I told her, I said, I feel anger. I feel anger that we have to do all this. Like, we're not doing a little work. We're doing a lot of work. And I told her, I said, I do believe that our mothers should have gotten it together and did what they needed to do, so that when it came to femininity and softness, we would know how to do it. When it came to getting out of survival mode, our nervous, like this, all this other stuff, we would be doing, like they would have done the work, and we would have been able to reap the benefits of it. You know, it does kind of suck that for me and her, we don't really have an older person to kind of talk to and vent to and like bring into the sessions with us and kind of like help us, and like somebody to vent to that can have more a higher level in this thing. Like, it's just me and her. And I told her the frustration. I said, I have frustration and I'm angry because of not having that person. And I believe it should have been our mothers, you know. And she was telling me that too. She's like, yeah, it's like, you know, now we got to do it. We're doing all the work, you know. And I'm like, I know, it just sucks, you know. I cried and had a tear or two because I'm just like, dang, you know. It's crazy. I had a session with a couple, and the woman was communicating, and I was just trying to dip my feet kind of into how to bring the femininity and softness that I'm learning into my relationship coaching and kind of mixing together. I still don't know, but I was kind of tapping into it a little bit with her. And I told her, like, you know, who taught you to be a woman? And, you know, she was like, you know, a mom and other women around me. And I said, well, what did you learn about womanhood? And, you know, it was like to survive. And, you know, she was saying that her mom survived all of her childhood, but she didn't thrive. Like, she never lived. She never really lived. And she said, I wish my mom would have finally, just before she died, would have just got a taste of life to just actually live it and not just survive everything. You know, like always not having, or not always being without, or always trying to go to the next thing and the next thing and trying to achieve and trying to get the high. Like you could tell she was never resting. She was never in relaxation. She was never calm, like never. And I could tell by this client that she also was struggling with that. But I mean, we've all got something, right? But as I know, I've struggled with it before too. And she was just telling me like who taught her how to be a woman, and the same for myself too. You know, I was in the era of being taught about womanhood. Like my era of where I was growing up, it was before, way before any kind of electronics came out. Like I was in the era that there was no social media, nothing like that, and then it came, right? Social media came, these cell phones came out, all these brand new cell phones, the high-techy ones. And then it was like, for me personally, the experience that I've experienced, and like other people, the women that I've known my age have experienced, it was like our parents were so busy working that, and weren't watching. And I think they weren't watching, to be honest, maybe because they didn't know the threat. Maybe they didn't know the threat to watch out for the threat, you know. But the biggest threat was that phone, and it was social media, you know. And because of them having so busy kind of getting their lives together, getting their relationships together, trying to hold on to each other, other stuff they got going on, social media raised us. They taught me at least what it means to be a woman, you know, what it is to be a woman, and boss chick and bad, you know, all the other stuff of, you know, using words and not really knowing what they really mean. If you look at the definitions, you see yourself that you don't want to be that. It's me, you know. But that's who taught me. And not my mom. You know, the most probably my mom has taught me. She's so amazing in other ways. But womanhood, no. And I think like when it comes to that, it was really social media and my peers at school and just things that I watched my mom do. You know, the most I've seen her take care of herself was like, Remember, she would paint her nails black on like Saturday night before Sunday for church, or she would always go on walks all the time. She would always walk, always walk, always walk, always walk. But she was very temperamental, very much like one minute she's happy, next minute she's really upset and yelling, or just a very, I would say, very overstimulated. She had 8 girls, okay? Very overstimulated woman, and very much into, like, we had a conversation recently, me and her and my dad were all talking, and she was just like, you know, when you hit menopause, you know, you'll be a certain way and be like this and be like that, and you'll see all the hormones you're experiencing, all the feelings you're feeling, that you're going to basically be going crazy. And I don't know menopause from a can of paint. I don't know it. I've never been through it. But I told her, I said, well, if that's the, you know, she was like, every woman's done this before. And I was just telling her, you know, if that's what every woman has done, I just don't want to be that kind of woman is all I'm saying. You know, I don't want to be the kind of woman that's like, and I'm not perfect, but to be like, oh, I was emotional, so I went off. That's no control. You know, I just, you know, I think we call strength something different. To me, strength is, you know, like the Bible says itself. You know, to a man, if somebody loves me and I love them, am I doing something spectacular? No. You know, it's not until something's wrong against me and then I still love that person, it's something that's like, whoa, right? And I think something with that, if something happens to you and you react crazy and loud because something happened, well, that naturally happens because of the amygdala and other stuff that goes on with you. That's natural. That's nothing. There's no self-control. There's nothing that, slow down, baby. That's for me. But there's nothing that, there's no strength in that. It takes no strength to go and react to somebody, you know, or to give them the same energy they're giving me. It's not, because nobody wants to feel disrespected, right? So where's the strength in that? There's none, you know. But what was the strength, right? To the person that can be able to be in a situation that would be high tense, high stressed, and they can keep calm, to grab peace. That is strength to me, you know. To want to feel emotional and to be vulnerable about their real emotions, not go off and just start acting a fool, you know, and get angry and just have all these emotional roller coasters. That's not strength to me. And I think, like, you know, and that's how my experience was with my mom, you know. And I wasn't really taught how to really be a lady, you know, how to really be feminine, be a woman, like, not even like a moment to experience that. Meaning, like, for me being a child to actually womanhood, like, there was not a moment for that, you know. I just remember that, like, one day we were like sitting down, I was talking to my sister, and I started getting really distant with my family. And with my older sister, I remember being at my friend's house, and she was like, why are you so distant with us? Like, what do we do? And I told her, I said, you guys only think of me as little, and they, you know, call me Nene, little Nene. And I said my, you know, my full grown name. And then she was like, okay, so now you're an adult, basically. Like, you're that, and that's the version of you we got to meet now. And I was like, yeah, sure, we'll just be patient with us, but we want to meet her. And I had to walk in that. But that was something I had to, like, go back and forth with her with, and then with. Like, it wasn't something that was, like, told to me. And I hope this makes sense. Told to me. But, yeah, it's like the staple of womanhood. That I'm a woman now. I tell you. Instead of it's something that tells me, you know? Like, there's no ritual. There's no... The quinceañera, you know, for Latinos, they have the 15th. Oh, you just not, like, I didn't have nothing like that, you know. And it's like sadness, of course, you know, but definitely a wish full of, like, wish somebody would just taught me this. I wish it would have been taught, because now it's like, not the blindly and the blind, but it's more like we're both in a dark room right now. You know, this is how I felt with relationship coaching when I didn't know much, even coaching period. And I didn't know anything. I had nobody before me. I had nobody to look up. I had to go on the internet and look up things and da-da-da. And it's the same thing I had to do with womanhood. I had to go on the internet and look up things and see things and search things about all this stuff because I didn't know, you know. And I don't want that to be something that's told to my daughter if I have one, because I only have sons now, or to anybody that's around me, to not know that kind of thing or not knowing certain things, you know. I think that, you know, in a society that's like, we can do whatever men can do and better, you know, of always competing with men all the time, instead of realizing we can do something that men can't do. We can be women. Why would I compete? you know? But it's like that kind of stuff wasn't taught. That competing was taught to me. Competing with men. Show them you're better. Show them that you can do this. Show them you can keep up. Show them you can do this and that. It's like, no. I can't. No. I'm better. I can do something better than I can do something. I can do something that they can't do. Be a woman, right? And I think it's like survival is passed down. It's just passed down. And like the girl that I was coaching, it was passed down to her, passed down to me. You know, I was telling my dad and my sister, not my sister, but my softness sister, and she's like a sister to me. And you know, my dad, I was telling him, I said, it's almost like if you think about it, like it's like a woman wearing a watch, and like the watch, it comes with directions, and the direction says, you know, for it never to get into water. I'm gonna see how far I am. For it to never get into water, never touch water at all. And one person goes into the water, and they forgot they had the watch on. They jump in the water, and they're in the water for like an hour, and they're like, oh, my watch, I had it on the whole time. And then the person's like, oh well, and they look at it and they keep watching it, like looking at their watch every so often, every day, see if it's wrong, and it's fine. And so years pass, right? And the watch still works. And they wet the watch up all the time now because they realize, okay, just because it says that doesn't mean much. And then another woman comes along and she puts the same watch that the girl has. You know, they're hanging out with, she's hanging out with the girl that had the watch that she put in water. Let's call her Cynthia. Cynthia, the one that had the watch with the water, that went in there and said, oh, okay, it still works, I'm good, meets Molly and her husband. And Molly and her husband go out with a trip with them, and they go in the pool, and Molly's like, I put my water in the watch, I can't do that. And Cynthia's like, no girl, I got the same watch, I put it in the water and it's fine, it works, it's good. And you're like, oh my gosh, okay. You're like, you're sure? And the girl's like, yeah, I've been doing it for like 4 years now and nothing's happened. And they're like, well, okay then. And they do it, right? And then Molly tells Susie, Susie tells Rebecca, Rebecca tells Tila, whatever. And it keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, right? And then one day, Cynthia's watch, she looks up and she's like, it's 9:33. She starts getting up really fast so she can get ready for work. She goes to work, and they're like, you're here super early and something you need to do? And she's like, it's 9:32. And they're like, no, it's only 7:40. And then she realizes, my watch broke from all the damage that she's done to it. You know, it wasn't created to do that. And I don't think us women were created to do a lot of things that we're doing. I just don't believe it. And I think that, but we're doing it because Cynthia said that she put her water in the watch and that it works still. Hope that makes sense. And I think that survival is taught to us, and we sometimes come into it, right? The world can be hard sometimes from different situations. And I think that when it happens like that, what do? Right? We try to survive it. But I just think that a lot of people are saying that, hey, we could do it. But I'm coming in and I'm probably like a little bit in there. And I'm like, God dang, people that did it for 50 years, how are y'all doing? Because that's it for me. You know, I'm like, what is the softer way to do this? Because your girl can't hang. I just can't hang. You know, the armor, the mask, the hardness, like, no, it's no. I can't hang. But yeah, I really wish that this is one of those things that like mom would have taught me. You know, and it's a book called The Queen's Code. And The Queen's Code, her grandma was like a woman that like knew about femininity and softness and how to bring it into relationships. It's a very beautiful book. I haven't read all of it, but the part I'm almost done. And the book, I may read on this page, you know, she's like, she helps them. She has something to give them and offer them in this part of their life. And I think when it comes to womanhood and femininity and softness, I really don't have anybody around me to give me any gifts. None. Not around me. I gotta go online. I gotta buy courses. I bought a cohort. I had to buy a cohort for like $600. This kind of stuff to tap into this thing that I'm so unfamiliar with. Part of my garden, you know, that I've never watered. And it's like, it's just, yeah. Just, it does not feel amazing that it's like, this is what it comes to, where it's like that, you know. But I do understand that we do what we can, what we have, and the knowledge that we have at the time. You know, my mom was really going through a lot, so I understand that. But it doesn't negate way that I feel, you know, and what we feel. Me and my softness sister, Charm, girl, I love you. But yeah, I wish somebody would have taught me. That's what I wish. I wish we had the person that's here in my brain, if I could have it on my way. the older lady would be right here sitting down with us, and she would be helping us, like almost like off of the Queen's Code, to sit down and teach lessons and have the sessions with us and be like, yes, ladies, da 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 da, and we could just tell our business and everything to her, everything, and she got you, and offer us a gift, some advice, a loving hand, a hug, something in the moments, and tell us this is going to be like this, it's going to be like that, it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be this and that, but like help us do it, you know. We don't have that. Yeah. We self-taught girlies. Okay, bye.